Alright, I figured I'd analyse George Soros while he's still alive, because let's be honest, the man is 95 and time is not exactly on his side. And I don't know about you, but I feel less guilty criticising people before they die, especially when what I am about to say is not really a tribute. Once they're gone, it feels like kicking a taxidermy exhibit. Weird, pointless, and slightly disrespectful. So while Soros is still around to theoretically sue me, let's pick apart his personality and see what makes him both fascinating and, depending on your perspective, slightly terrifying. So let's talk about George Soros. Yes, that George Soros. The man who, depending on who you ask, is either a kindly old billionaire giving away his fortune to help society, or the actual final boss of international puppet masters secretly plotting to replace your neighbours with highly suspicious NGOs. Before we start this unlicensed psychological evaluation, drop a comment and let me know which other billionaires or infamous masterminds you'd like me to misdiagnose. Alright, so let's set the stage. George Soros was born Georgi Schwartz in Budapest, Hungary, in 1930. Already you can tell his life is going to be complicated, because anyone who starts out in pre-World War II Hungary automatically gets a PhD in chaos by the time they hit adolescence. As a Jewish teenager, he lived through Nazi occupation. This is not the kind of childhood that makes you believe in the Easter Bunny or in safe investment portfolios. It hardens you, it sharpens you, it basically wires your brain to say, there is no such thing as stability, so maybe I should just learn to manipulate chaos itself. And, spoiler alert, that's pretty much what he did. After the war, he eventually made his way to London, studied at the London School of Economics under philosopher Karl Popper, and fell in love with this idea of open societies. And here's where it gets funny, because George Soros is the type of person who doesn't just read philosophy. No, he takes it personally, like it's a challenge. He basically said, what if I had so much money that I could actually reshape societies? And then he went and did it. So yes, if you ever read a philosophy book and felt like it gave you a mild existential crisis, just know George Soros read one and decided to spend billions of dollars experimenting with entire countries. Some people take up golf, some people buy a boat. Soros? He tries to engineer democracy. Now let's not forget his claim to fame in the financial world, the legendary 1992 event known as Black Wednesday, when Soros famously broke the Bank of England. Sounds like a supervillain origin story, right? Basically, he bet $10 billion against the British pound. $10 billion. That's not a bet, that's a psychological profile waiting to be written. And he was right. The pound collapsed. The Bank of England was forced to withdraw it from the European exchange rate mechanism. Soros made more than $1 billion in profit in a single day. The UK government lost billions. And he walked away with a smirk that probably smelled like expensive cologne mixed with pure schadenfreude. Now imagine what kind of personality does that take? To risk that much, to gamble against one of the oldest, proudest financial institutions on earth, and then to actually win. That's not just confidence. That's God-complex territory. That's I check the weather forecast and decided to short the rain clouds kind of mindset. So when people call Soros dangerous, it's not just conspiracy theorists mumbling on message boards. There's truth to it. Because he actually did destabilize an entire national currency system, on purpose, for profit. Governments don't like him, and it's not hard to see why. Imagine being a government, trying to balance your economy, when one eccentric billionaire is standing outside your central bank like a guy at the horse races loudly betting against your currency, and then winning. It's humiliating, it's destabilizing, and it's very on brand for Soros. So what does this say about his personality? Well, for one, he's clearly high in openness to experience. He's not afraid to take big risks, explore wild ideas, and act on them. But pair that with sky-high levels of what psychologists call locus of control, the belief that you, personally, are the one steering the universe, and you get a man who genuinely believes he can bend reality if he tries hard enough. And for Soros, sometimes he can. Now you might be thinking, but wait, isn't he also a philanthropist? Doesn't he give away billions to promote democracy, education, human rights? Yes, he does. His open society foundations have poured tens of billions into causes around the world. He's given scholarships, funded healthcare, supported independent journalism, all very noble. But here's the catch. It's noble in a way that also reshapes entire political systems. He doesn't just buy a hospital wing and slap his name on it like your average rich guy. No, He funds movements that topple governments. He bankrolls activists who challenge regimes. He is basically a fairy godmother of political unrest, which makes him beloved by some, despised by others, and deeply feared by quite a few. So when governments say they don't like Soros, they're not just being paranoid. He really does intervene in political systems. He really does fund dissent. He really does challenge power structures. Conspiracy theories exaggerate his control to absurd levels, but they start with a grain of truth. Soros has both the money and the will to push history in the direction he personally thinks it should go. And if you're wondering what gives a single human being the confidence to try and redesign entire nations, well, Soros himself basically gave us the answer. He once admitted to having what he called a messianic fantasy as a young man. In interviews, he even said he fancied himself as some kind of god, which, let's be honest, explains a lot. Most teenagers think they're destined to start a garage band. Soros thought he was destined to save humanity. And while he insists he grew out of it, I'd argue his bank account didn't. Because when you're reshaping governments and economies on a global scale, that's not just philanthropy, that's messiah roleplay with better PR. But here's where it gets psychologically juicy. What makes a person actually want to do this? Most billionaires are content with buying islands, eating endangered animals as appetizers, or building rocket ships to Mars. Soros doesn't care about that. He wants to tinker with society like it's his personal Lego set. I think it comes back to his childhood. Growing up during the Holocaust, he saw firsthand how fragile societies really are. When you've lived through tanks rolling down your street, you don't really trust that governments will figure it out. So Soros decided he'd figure it out himself by pouring his fortune into shaping what he believed was a more open, democratic, tolerant world. Sounds altruistic, right? Except here's the personality twist. His version of helping is basically global-scale social engineering. He's the kind of person who looks at an entire country and thinks, this needs an upgrade, the way most of us think about updating our phone software. That's both inspiring and terrifying, depending on how much you like your current government. And of course, all of this feeds into the endless conspiracy theories. Is he secretly orchestrating every protest? No. Is he secretly behind every immigration policy? No. Is he funding every left-leaning cause on Earth? Not literally. But is he putting billions into real NGOs that influence public policy? Absolutely yes. So when people call it all just conspiracy theories, I think that undersells it. It's more like conspiracy theories with a hint of realism. The exaggerations are crazy, but the foundation, that Soros is actively meddling in political and social movements, is absolutely real. Now, from a personality perspective, he's also fascinating because he manages to be both incredibly self-assured and oddly invisible at the same time. He doesn't do flashy PR, he doesn't brag on Instagram, he doesn't run for office. Instead, he pulls strings from the background quietly, like a man who read too many spy novels and thought, why not me? If you compare him to other billionaires like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, Soros looks almost boring. No rockets, no yachts the size of Rhode Island, no space cowboy hats. Just endless think tanks, political donations, and long speeches about open societies. He's basically the accountant of global disruption, which ironically makes him scarier. Because someone who is this effective without craving fame probably isn't in it for ego. He's in it because he actually believes in his mission, and people who believe in their mission, especially when they have unlimited money, are the most unpredictable of all. But let's lighten this up with a few specific quirks. For instance, Soros has been married 3 times, which, if nothing else, suggests that shaping global politics is easier than shaping domestic harmony. He's also known for being extremely private, bordering on reclusive, which only makes conspiracy theories about him more delicious. If he occasionally walked into Starbucks and ordered a pumpkin spice latte like a normal person, people might stop thinking he controls the weather. Psychologically, he seems to score high on traits like conscientiousness and strategic thinking, but lower on agreeableness. He's not afraid to be hated, which is rare. Most people at least want to be liked. Soros is perfectly fine being cast as the villain, as long as he gets to keep playing the game, and I think that's the essence of his personality profile. Soros is a player. Not in the romantic sense, though again, 3 marriages, but in the sense that life itself is a massive chessboard, and he's the guy moving pieces around while the rest of us are just trying to remember how the knight moves. So to sum up, George Soros is not the lizard people mastermind that some internet corners want you to believe, but he's also not your average kindly philanthropist. He's a man shaped by chaos, obsessed with shaping the world, capable of bringing down national economies, and completely comfortable being the villain in someone else's story. That combination of traits, visionary idealism, financial ruthlessness, political meddling, and extreme confidence, makes him one of the most fascinating, dangerous, and oddly misunderstood figures alive today. But before I forget, if you've actually enjoyed this half-serious dissection of George Soros' psyche, go ahead and subscribe, because nothing says, I support questionable amateur psychology, like hitting that button. And on that note, I'll leave you with this. Next time you hear someone mention Soros in a conspiracy theory, remember that reality is already strange enough. You don't need to add lizard people. The man himself is more than bizarre enough. See you in the next breakdown. Or, who knows, maybe Soros will fund my early retirement before then. A guy can dream.